Thanks for tuning in to My Valley, His Victory, hosted by me, Mackenzie Smith, where I interview Christians who love the outdoors and have walked through valleys in their lives. In a world of highlight reels and surface-level relationships, we all have faced hardships. I believe our experiences can be encouraging to others if we have the courage to be vulnerable. 2 Corinthians 1 says, "The Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." My goal is to inspire you to come to the Creator through His creation and connect you with Christians who have been through similar experiences. I pray that this podcast encourages you if you are in a valley and pushes you to share how God has turned your past valley into His victory. This episode is brought to you by Highlander USA. Highlander USA is the adventure of a lifetime. It is a hiking event held in Big Bear, California, June 17th through 21st, with formats from 1 day to 5 days. If you're interested in hiking or backpacking and being around those who love the outdoors, look no further than Highlander. Use code Kenzie20 for 20% off your registration. I hope to see you there. On today's episode of My Valley, His Victory, we have Laura Esquivel. She is a dedicated advocate with nearly a decade of experience combating sex trafficking. Since 2017, she has inspired thousands to raise millions of dollars in heightened awareness of this critical issue. Balancing her professional commitments with her personal life, she is a devoted wife and a mother of 3 sons. Her unwavering passion lies in eradicating sex trafficking and empowering individuals to utilize their resources for positive change. Through her work with Atlas Free, she strives to inspire others to take action, believing that everyone has the ability to contribute to a better world. Thanks so much for being with us today, Laura.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. It's so funny hearing your bio read back to you.
I totally agree with that. I was
like, oh, that girl sounds cool.
Hey, that girl is you.
That girl is cool.
Oh, I love it.
So funny.
So I know that our listeners are a little bit familiar with Atlas Free because we had Jenny on, but kind of from a totally different perspective. So I would love for you to just dive into a little bit more about you and a little bit more about Atlas Free.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have been, and I'll dive in a little bit, further down the road of how I got involved with Atlas Free, but just at a high level, I've been on staff with Atlas Free since the end of 2018. And I've been on the development team really the entire time, just working to bring people into this cause using what they have, their resources. So if they love to run or love to hike or love to climb mountains, they can utilize it as a way to raise funds and raise awareness. Or if they love hosting dinners, they can do that. And then I also work heavily with our church partners and corporate partners, and just really anybody who will lend me their ear. I will say, okay, this is the issue. This is why you should care. And this is what you get to do about it. Yeah. And a little bit about Atlas Free. So Atlas Free has been around since 2012. It was founded by our president and CEO, Jeremy Valorand, when he saw the horrific issue of trafficking on a trip to India. Came back and just wanted to do something about it. And he did that very thing that summer. He was climbing a mountain, and Mount Rainier to be exact. And he said, people raise money, they run and they raise money. Why can't I climb this mountain and raise money for this issue? So he did that. He rallied his friends. He said, okay, this is what we're doing. And they ended up raising thousands of dollars to work in the anti-trafficking space. And so he found organizations to partner with, sent the money that direction, and did that for a few years, and found this common theme that there was a lot of really incredible organizations out there in the world that were doing good things in their local community, in their country, in their region, but no one was really cross-collaborating and talking with each other and actually resourcing each other, coming under this umbrella where they can feel like they are being trained and supported and lifted up as they are boots on the ground in their specific area. So that's when he launched Atlas Free with this vision to build a global network of organizations across the globe that are all working together and unite a united front to fight sex trafficking.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that explanation. And I think it's so cool what he realized, people are out here running or walking for, you name it,
Yeah.
health. I feel like when I was a kid, we did a lot of like walk for MS or, like all these health things, cancer, all the things. And it's like, it's a great way to get people,
Oh, yeah.
active and donating and, doing something. And
absolutely. I think that when you hear of the issue of sex trafficking, there's this visceral response. You're just like, I have to do something about it. And that's where I found myself in my early 20s. I heard about the issue and I was ready to sell everything, move to a foreign country and start kicking down the doors and bringing people into freedom. And so there's people I've often talked to and they're like, how can I be part of like a sting or a raid or, go and do the thing? And I was like, well, like that's not really, what is necessarily helpful, right?
You're not going to be helpful there.
Yeah. but you can do something and you can actually put, physical activity to it. And so when people go and they do a hard thing and they're challenging themselves physically, it kind of scratches that itch of like, I'm doing something and this is hard and it's for a hard issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Are most of the organizations, this is just, I'm illiterate on this topic. Yeah. I don't know anything about it. Yeah. Are most of the organizations outside of the US, or like where is like the bulk of this problem and money going if there is a place?
It's a great question. So we're working in 27 countries around the globe, and we have over 100, we call them network members, which are the organizations that are working in their local context. When we first started as Atlas Free, we had 2 network members, so 2 501c3s, NGOs that were working in Asia specifically. And we've grown to over 109 organizations to be exact. And 60 of those are right here in the United States. And there's a large concentration in Asia, which some of the largest amounts of exploitation and trafficking happen in that region. So it's all over, and we really have to have a collective front in each region in order to end this thing globally. So if we're not looking at it holistically from a global approach, we'll never end it in a particular region or a local in a local community. I often get the question, well, what are you doing here locally in my city? And, trafficking is happening in this city. And so what is Atlas Free doing about it? And I answer that question with, well, we have a strategic and a holistic and a global approach to ending it, because we will never be able to end this issue on a global scale if we don't fight it with a holistic and strategic approach. And that ladders down to the local community. So right here in the Tri-Cities, actually, we have 2 network members that are working on the front lines. They're working with victims that are coming out of trafficking and giving them opportunity to receive vocational training and set them up to never experience a life of trafficking again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Kudos to y'all for all that you're doing. And just like, I like what you said, we can try to band-aid it in all these different places, but it's like, we have to kind of work from the top and come down. And so I think that's a good plan, and it is needed, and like I said, I'm not the first person. I don't know much about human trafficking, but I know enough to know that
when I first got into this. I mean, I was greener than green. And, but it's just been, years of learning, having conversations and inviting people in that you learn more, and goodness, the more that I learn, the more that I want to fight this thing hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So, outside of Atlas Free, that's your job, that's your career. I know it's what you're super passionate about as well, but tell us a little bit about Laura and who she is and what she likes to do.
Okay. Who am I?
The golden question.
I know, the golden question. Gosh, I love joy, and I love bringing joy to people, to my family, to I start with that because that kind of ladders down to a lot of things that I love to do, and I love to get outside. That brings me joy. When I'm able to bring people along with me, that brings them joy. I mentioned this in my bio, but I have 3 boys, 16, 14 and 11. And my husband, who is a pastor of a church here in the Tri-Cities, Hope Tri-Cities. And we have been married, oh my goodness, next month will be 20 years.
Congrats.
I don't even know how that all happened, but I would be, I love physically being active. I love spontaneity. I love road trips. Gosh, I don't know. It's such a funny question to answer because I don't, and I probably answer it different, but with the same theme each time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love it. It's always a hard question to answer, and writing a bio is always strange too. It's like, well, I don't know, like I kind of do this and I kind of do that. And
totally.
yeah, it's like, yeah, I can put all my professional things, but what about my personal things?
Right. Yeah.
So
I don't like to bake. I'm not a baker. And
all right.
So that's, one thing that I don't like to do.
Yeah. Hey, those are all good things. So you said you like to road trip. You said you like to push yourself physically and, be in the outdoors. Kind of what does that specifically look like for you? Are you a skier? Are you a mountain biker? Are you a hiker? Are you a climber? Yeah. What's your jam?
Yeah. Well, my jam for a lot of years was long distance running outside. So did several marathons, half marathons, really anything that was endurance. So I loved going out on really long hikes and getting in the outdoors that way.
Type 2 fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up skiing. So when I was 11 years old, I put on my first pair of skis and would be a night skier every Friday night with my BFF growing up. And so that was really fun. Laid the skis down in my early 20s not early 20s, like late 20s when I started having kiddos. And for whatever reason, I just said skiing is going to be too expensive for a family. So I said, I better lay these down. But I still do want to maybe venture out again to the skiing. But I love paddle boarding. I just went out yesterday morning on the Columbia River and did some paddle boarding. And I climbed my first glaciated peak, Mount Baker, 3 years ago. And maybe I'll do that again, but literally get me outside, call me happy. Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it. All endurance things sounds like for the most part. And the physically challenge really came out there for you and the type 2 fun. So
yeah. I'm like, make me earn that burger afterwards. Not that you have to earn food, but just there's something about a big old burger and fries and perhaps a cider at the end of a really long, intense, workout.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something about actually needing that fuel or that food. You know what I mean? It's I could go and eat one of those right now, but there's something different when you're like, oh no, I just burned 8,000 calories.
Right. I'm like, I need every ounce of this beef in my body right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Laura, talk to us a little bit about how the outdoors plays a role specifically in your relationship with Christ.
Yeah. I've had many moments of feeling when I feel kind of just I need clarity in a season, I will go on a long walk or when I was doing longer distance running, and we'll get to that a little later of why I'm not distance running as much anymore. But a long hike, something where I don't put any earbuds in. I just let myself be in God's creation. And it's, some of the most profound moments of clarity, moments where he just reveals himself to me in a closer way. There's a greater confidence that I feel in just life in general, and how we have we have so much self-negative talk. I swear it's like it's something that, people battle every single day. But the connection to his voice is so much deeper and stronger in the outdoors. And I don't know exactly why that is, but I've had thoughts, as I'm looking around and seeing like, oh, a beautiful alpine lake or a beautiful sunrise, sunset, and just the quietness of it. And that I am one person in the midst of a sea of 8 billion human beings. And there's likely many others just like me on the other side of the world or in their various location that are having a moment just like me. And it feels so powerful and so strong and so connected to the Lord. And he's doing that for so many other people. And I feel that when I am just looking at the vastness of his creation and amongst the quiet. And so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've heard it said, and I don't know if it's, true. I obviously don't know God, like in the way, but it's like he's talking all the time, but he's not going to he's not going to shout,
No.
and so it's like for us to get outside and like quiet the noise and like actually be tuned in to listening. I think that there's just so much more room for us to be able to hear. It's not that he's not speaking, but he's not going to be like, screaming from the rooftops, like, listen to me. Now, I think he does do that about certain things. And so that's why I said, like, I don't know that it's fully true, but I think in general, it's like, he's not going to beg for your attention every single day.
Yeah.
Day in and day out,
Yeah. And he's so kind. He knows what you need in every moment. But it's up to us to step into that and say, I receive what you have for me today, Lord. And that takes quieting ourselves and stepping away from the noise. And I stopped listening to any music or podcasts or anything on my long runs and hikes, probably when I was 25 years old. So it's been a hot second, and it was the best thing. I mean, I have like a voice, you have your little voice recorder on your phone. I cannot tell you how many times I'm like, da, 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 because just he's, downloaded, and it's anything from like wild hair ideas to like, Laura, I love you. And this is why.
Yeah, I agree. I've stopped listening to a lot whenever I'm outside, and there's just my brain. It's just crazy. Like it actually has room to like think outside of the normal day and to like, you have more creativity. And then I feel like there's so much that happens when you actually sit with your thoughts and don't have something distracting you.
We don't do it often enough.
Yeah. So can you share a specific story about a way in which God has maybe revealed himself to you or spoken to you in the outdoors?
Yeah. This one is tied very much to, where I'm at right now and working for Atlas Free and a lot of the work that I do in the anti-trafficking space. So I was out on this particular stretch of trail. Well, let me back up for a half second. I led a backpacking trip back in 2016 with a group of ladies. I was so excited to do it. It was going to be my third backpacking trip, but it was one that was going into this area. It's called the Enchantments. It's a very well-known section of trail here in Washington State. And I had read about it since I was like 16 years old. I was that girl who was like reading, the Alpine Lake Wilderness Guide when I was a teenager. Like, where do I want to go? And this one, it felt like I was reading about outer space. Like I may as well have been reading about Mars and like traveling there, because it just seemed like so out of reach the way that they were describing the trail. I'm like, oh, I have to do that one day. And, life goes by and nobody wanted to do this like a grand adventure with me. And I wasn't going to do it by myself because too intimidating, la, la, la. So finally the time arrives to do this backpacking trip. We had secured permits to camp at Kolchak Lake at the base of Asgard Pass. And I had it all planned out. On day 2, we were going to go up the pass into the core zone and experience all that the enchantments had to offer. So get up on the second morning and it's time to climb Asgard Pass. And this is the only window that we had because we had to leave the next day. And the weather was supposed to be beautiful. And we woke up and it was completely socked in. Like I have never seen clouds that thick when I pulled myself out of my tent. I was like, are you kidding me? Really, Lord? Like on this day. So I was so disappointed, but we got up, I brought the ladies together. I was like, okay, not ideal weather for us today, but who wants to attempt it? And maybe the clouds will clear by the time we get to the top and we can still experience. And they're like, yes, let's try it. So I'm leading these girls up a very hard, you climb like 2,400, 2,800 feet of elevation in 3/4 of a mile. It's just so steep. And so I'm encouraging them. The clouds are not clearing and we finally get to the top and you can't see from like me to, a person that's sitting maybe 5 feet away from me. So we're huddled behind this rock, so cold. And I see like literally just like this goat walks right in front of me. And I didn't see it coming. I was just like, oh my gosh, there's a goat. Like that is how thick this fog was. And so I was like, all right, ladies, the enchantments are not on our list today. We need to go back down the pass. And that's just what our day is. And they were so sad. And, there was grumbling that was happening, which I can understand. Everybody was feeling their feels. And I'm trying to be as positive as I can without being Pollyanna, annoying person. And we get to have our feelings. So we make it down. And we had this great conversation about disappointment and how we respond to disappointment. And so that's like part A of the story. And I looked to one of my friends. I was like, I have to see the enchantments, but our permits, we can't secure anymore this summer. And I said, so do you want to come back with me in 2 weeks and do it all in one day? And she's like, heck yeah. So that is what we did. Because of the fog, because of the disappointment, we made the plan to go back and do it all in one day. That never would have been my plan to begin with. And so 2 weeks later, we come back and it's gorgeous weather. Couldn't have had more better conditions that day. So we start out early, climb up the pass, get into the core zone. It's all that I thought it would be and more. And just like a kid in a candy shop experiencing the fullness of God's creation. And so we get about 10 miles in and we're sitting at this beautiful, one of the many alpine lakes that we were hitting that day. And I'm not thinking about anything in the world, like the problems of the world, nothing. Like I'm just like fully focused on like, God, you are so, so good to have created this so that we could experience it. And I hear so clearly, like I don't hear often the audible like voice of the Lord. And I think that he speaks in many different ways, but this was like wild. Like, whoa, did somebody just come out of a bush and say that to me? But it was this clear, you're going to take people here and it's going to be for a bigger purpose. And I was like, that is super interesting. And so I looked at my hiking buddy. I was like, Leslie, I think there's something really special about this place and God is doing something and he's stirring something. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm all ears. And so we completed the trail and got to the end, which was a funny story because we didn't have a ride back to our car. And because we didn't plan, we just didn't plan it well at all. I think we were thinking like, oh, let's just go up to the core zone and then head back down Asgard Pass to our car. No, we wanted to go all the way through because it was just like, you ever see Bug's Life where it's like, I just go to the light. That was us, like just a little bit further. And so we had to hitchhike and, just all the things. It was kind of crazy. But That's a complete side note. So I get off the trail and I just start, praying over the next few days. Like, God, what are you saying? What do you have? And I was already in that season of life of my kids were, at the age where my youngest was starting kindergarten. And so it's like, all right, raising them, you know, oh, my husband's a pastor. We're leading a church. Like, I don't need to be doing anything else. That's enough in itself. But I just had this stirring, and he quickly brought me back to my early 20s when I first heard about the issue of sex trafficking and the exploitation of individuals around the world. And I was like, that I want to put time and energy into seeing more people come into freedom. And so that was the connection. It was like, you can use what you love to do. And there's so many parallels that you can draw when you're leading people in the outdoors, doing something physically hard, and they're in a place where they feel the most free, where I feel the most free, and you're attaching that to bringing freedom to others around the world. And so I was like, all right, amazing. Here we go. Now what?
Yeah. And you have now led multiple groups through the enchantments, right? Through Atlas Free.
Yeah. So from that time, I did what anybody who doesn't know what they're doing does. Either YouTube it or Google search. And so I Google search anti-trafficking organizations in Washington State. Because I was looking for I knew I wanted to raise awareness. I knew I wanted to raise funds, but I didn't have an organization to attach it to at all. So I began my research because I wanted to partner with an organization that was doing good work, that was stewarding finances well, all the things. So I had these boxes that I wanted to check, and I came across Atlas Free, and there was many organizations that I found that were doing good work, but Atlas Free continued to be highlighted to me because of the holistic approach, and that they weren't just coming in and parachuting down into different local communities and saying, hey, we're going to come and save the world, but they were coming alongside those that were already there in their local area doing the good work, and wanting to bolster and strengthen the efforts. And so loved that. And I went onto the website and I said, okay, create a fundraiser. And after creating the fundraiser, I started writing, a Facebook post, because that's what you do anytime you want to get something out there, just take it to social media. So I was composing my post, and I probably hit backspace like a million times because I was like, oh, that's dumb. Okay, who wants to go into the enchantments and do a really long hike and do it to fight sex trafficking? No, that's dumb. Like, nobody's going to get that. And so finally I composed something that I feel like, okay, I could post this. And my husband is just on the other side of the counter in the kitchen. He's like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he's like, are you sitting there just not posting this? He's like, why are you not posting this? I was like, because I'm nervous. I don't know if anybody's going to want to join. Like, what do people think? All the things. And then I was reminded, remember what I said in that moment in front of that alpine lake. You heard me, so do it. So I just hit post, and it was like the first 7 people to, donate $100. You can come with me to the enchantments, and we'll raise money and awareness, blah, blah, blah. And in the first 45 minutes, 18 people donated $100. And I was like, oh, okay. This is amazing, but also now what? Now what do I do? I can't take all 18 of you into this trail. And so long story short, I figured out, all right, if I enlist one of my buddies, and she can, we can do it back-to-back days, and we can make sure we have the group size of 7 to 8 people and not go above that. And so I ended up hiking it 2 days in a row in 2017. Yeah, which was wild. And I don't recommend anyone do that. But because I love endurance and I was an endurance athlete and I was trained and, trained up for it, it worked out. But definitely got to the end of that and was like wildly exhausted. And people were like, when are we doing this again? I was like, never, we're never doing this again. And, but sure enough, like the Lord was just so, so kind. And he's, sent people my way, were sending me text messages like, we can help you. Like this would, be amazing. And so ended up doing it the next year. And with those two summers combined, ended up raising over $100,000 for Atlas Free and the fight against sex trafficking. And then that's when they, started having conversations with me about coming on the team and continuing to mobilize people. And so when I came on in 2018, and it's since went from raising hundreds of thousands of dollars to, since 2017, this adventure philanthropy, which we call it, community has raised $4.5 million since 2017. So
wow.
It's wild.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. And it's crazy to think like what one person's obedience can open the door to.
Totally.
And that's not to say that, some of this wouldn't have happened without you, but it's like you sitting there and being like, oh, people aren't going to care. It's like you do it because I told you to do it. Mm-hmm. And now look at all of the things that I've brought through this, and
so many stories, so many individual stories of one yes impacting another yes, impacting another yes, impacting another yes.
Yes.
It's fun. It's humbling.
Yes. So it's always encouraging. It's like if you have something that you're like scared to do, it's like just have the courage to do it and say yes, because you don't know, and it's not your responsibility. Like if God told you to do it, like you're responsible to say yes and not have to worry about the outcome.
Right. Totally. And that's the beautiful part of it, is that takes the pressure off. Right. It's, we tend to just pick so much on and put it on our shoulders. And if this fails, it's on me. And you know what, like if you fail, that's research and development. You get to fail and you get to figure out a better way to do it and get back up. And like, that's what makes us so resilient and so strong. But if we stay back and we don't, just do the next right thing. That's what I often tell people. I'm like, just do the next right thing, like whatever that looks like. And because you'll be further than you were 2 days ago if you just do the next right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And wow, just amazing to see that whole story develop.
Yeah.
So, Laura, I know that you live in Washington, but you live in, I'm not going to say a big city. We've talked a lot about experiencing God in these big outdoor adventures and, being in some amazing, beautiful bucket list places like the Enchantments.
Yeah.
What are some practical ways that people can start connecting with God on an everyday basis through his creation?
Gosh. Yeah, if you're at the point where, like if hiking hasn't ever been a part of your life, or even getting outside and walking, it blows my mind how so many people don't actually get outside and don't realize like how much that can really truly benefit you. I mean, they say vitamin D, all the things, yada, yada. But I would say, is there 20 minutes that you can find a spot in your area, whether it's a park or next to a body of water, something that just gets you moving. I don't know if anybody's ever read the book Atomic Habits. It's a good one. But it's that principle of just like doing something that's attainable. Like we all have these like big audacious goals that we sometimes set for ourselves, and we don't reach them because they're unreachable, because there's a lot of different steps that have to happen before you get there. And so backing it up and just doing one additional thing in your day that becomes a habit. And when I started getting outdoors, it was, my first hike was when I was 15 years old, I think it was. And I didn't realize that I actually loved it until I did it. And that became something that I wanted to have as part of my life. And so whatever that looks like, if you want to try paddleboarding, if you want to start running, start by just doing 3 minutes of it. If somebody tries to go out and run a mile and they've never run before, they'll be like, I hate running. People come in, I hate running. I'm like, well, probably because you're trying to do too much running all at once. So just do a small little bite size bit. And then I would encourage people to do it without noise. Get out there, and it's easy to put on the music that like brings you motivation or whatever, but just try doing it without noise, because we have enough of that. I swear the amount of time that can be wasted on just like scrolling through dumb reels on Instagram, and guilty. I mean, I think we've all been guilty of just like, whoa, I like, there's sometimes where I'm scrolling, I'm like, where did time go? Like, what just happened? Like,
or I'll like a post without even watching it. It's just like,
it's so dumb.
No, I like that. Start small, because if you don't start small, then your chances of failing go up, and not keeping it a habit go up. And then do it without noise. I think those are very practical. And I've read that book, Atomic Habits. It's really great. And I love just like the opening. I'll never forget the opening chapter. I don't even know if it's the chapter or the prelogue, but it's like, it talks about the like Swiss biking team and how they want to change, just like they want to make them 1% better, every day. Yeah. And it's like, that put a lot into perspective to me, because, I think we so often have these, like you were saying, big goals of like, I want to change this drastic thing in my life. It's like, just shoot for 1% better than yesterday. Yeah. And seeing how that made a difference in that chapter, I was like, holy cannoli, that's huge.
It's huge. It's huge. Yeah. A lot of times we forget where we came from too. When I started doing, weight training a year and a half ago. And it was this thing where I was like, okay, I'm just going to start showing up. I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm going to just do 3 days a week. I'm going to start adding in weights and be consistent. And I was like, I will not come to another December. I said this to myself. I will not come to another December 31st wishing that I had made strength training an active part of my life. Because I was cardio queen for days, but I'm like, I'm in my 40s now, and, muscles like just starts to decrease, all the things. And so I said that to myself, and that was a commitment that I made. And it was just a matter of showing up. Sometimes I wouldn't even do the full workout. I would just show up and do the 15 minutes or whatever, push something, pull something. Get it done. Push something, pull something.
I love it.
And today I was even having like that moment where I was like, oh, I wish I was further along in my strength training journey, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, shut your mouth, Laura. Like you've been consistent for a year and a half, and there is difference. Like I feel a difference in my overall everything. And I am stronger today than I was a year and a half ago. Period.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. And kudos to you for keeping it up, because that is the hardest part. Ooh. Showing up on the days you don't want to show up. Yeah. But we got to do it. Mm-hmm. All right, Laura. So switching gears a little bit into the title of this podcast, My Valley, His Victory. Would love for you to share a valley or a season of wilderness that you experienced, and just what God maybe taught you or prepared you for in that season.
Yeah. So 4 years ago, my family and I, we were in a pretty bad car accident. We were on our way doing what we love to do, get outdoors. We were going to go sledding that day, and we were heading up a mountain road into Tollgate, and it was this sledding area that we had never experienced before. And so we were going up with some friends. They were in the car in front of us. Like it was just like the day was set to be a perfect day in the outdoors. And we were coming around a corner, and it was a sunny day, no snow on the road. We didn't expect any bad conditions. And so we're coming around a corner to there was a shaded area, and we hit black ice, like out of nowhere. And I just remember I was on the phone with someone, and then all of a sudden the car started going out of control. My husband was driving, and I remember clear as day him just saying, no, 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 no. Like he couldn't control the car, and it spun. It was spinning so fast and heading towards these trees, and we started to flip, and this giant tree stopped us from flipping, but that giant tree hit my passenger side of the car and, knocked the back end. And, by the time we stopped spinning, I remember taking this like just deep breath in and going, I'm still alive because I saw a tree. I mean, it's amazing. Like when you have moments like that, I don't know if anybody, if you're listening to this and you've experienced a car accident or something where it's like, how am I alive right now? So many things fly through your brain in that split second. And I was just thinking, God, not my children, like not my children. And when I saw the tree heading for me, it was almost this like weird, like, okay, it's me. It's going to hit me, not them. But I was like literally shocked that I was still breathing and just took in a full breath of air. And then I spun myself around to look at my kids. They were obviously like, freaking out, but they were all crying. I was like, okay, they're okay. Everybody looks like, somewhat intact. And so we get out of the car, and I do everything that I'm not supposed to do with the injuries that I found out that I had. I, jumped across, went out that's amazing. Like adrenaline is fierce, but like mama adrenaline is even more, it's like next level fierce. And so I was like getting out, my side was completely smashed in, so I couldn't get out. And so I get out the driver's side, and I'm just like, touching my kids, like looking for like any bleeding, anything. And they were all okay. And then I had that moment of like, oh, I don't think I'm okay. And I just hit my knees, and there was like, I could tell that something was going on with my right side and my back, and just was like, just sitting there on my knees. And our friends had come back, and they came to me, and they're like, are you okay? I was like, I think I'm okay. And finally long story short, finally they convinced me that I needed to go to the hospital, because I was doing I think it's just muscle. Like, I just want to go home. Can we just go home? And the EMT, like, thank God somebody was able to call 911, because our right before the accident happened, like my cell phone was starting to glitch out. I was on the phone with somebody, and we went into a pocket that there was no cell service. So when we started to call 911, no cell service, nobody had cell service. And there happened to be a house right around the corner that was able to use a landline and call. So emergency came, and they just looked at me, and they're like, yeah, you need to go. And apparently I was like showing all signs of like shock and, all the things. So went to the hospital and did a CAT scan, all the things. And that's when they told me, they're like, yeah, your back is broken in 3 places, and your brain is bleeding. You have an injury to your brain, and there's a hemorrhage. And I'm like, in that moment, I'm like, wait, what? I never had I been told that I had any type of injuries like that in my life. I had never even had a broken bone. And so it was this like, I couldn't even like quite comprehend what they were telling me. And they said, so now we need to transport you back to the Tri-Cities, because they have a neurosurgeon there, and we need you to be close to a neurosurgeon to watch your brain hemorrhage, because you might need to have surgery. And so they're getting a helicopter ready to transport me. And then they come back, they're like, oh, the helicopter is not able to fly because of the winds. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So they're like, we have to transport you by, vehicle. And so the entire time I'm like there in the thing by myself, my family wasn't able to go with me. And I'm thinking, all right, am I going to die now or in 10 minutes? Like my brain is literally bleeding. So So finally get to the hospital, and it's like, it's during, COVID, and nobody could stay with me. My husband was able to like come in and be like, all right, good night. I can't stay. And so I'm there the whole night. Just because I have a head injury, I'm like getting sick multiple times throughout the night. And I have this broken back. And so just a horrible experience. Wouldn't wish it on anybody. And so thank God, the brain hemorrhage absorbed on its own. I didn't have to have surgery. And then they discharged me after a couple days. And so then I started this like, okay, I didn't die. Now let's physically like get better. I didn't, I was just like, all right, I have things to do this summer. It wasn't a vertebrae that broke. It was, one of my discs had ruptured, and then the transverse process bones had gone like dink, 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 like it just snap, snap, snap type of scenario. So I was like, all right, this is like, I can do physical therapy. This is all good. And so over the next 6 months, I just was focused on getting physically better. I paid zero attention to the actual trauma that happened to my overall body, mind, everything. And went about my, like, in the summertime, I started hiking again and getting out there. And so that was an interesting season, because I have always been so used to being the strong one on the trail, being the one that is able to bring encouragement to somebody who is struggling. I've done it a number of times. And that summer, I was doing a trip through the enchantments, and I was the one, leading the group. Mind you, this is 7 months after my accident. I had no business doing that. Like, what was I thinking? Like, give yourself a hot second to recover, Laura. Like, you didn't need to be out there. But it was this weird, because I didn't die, like, I have so much appreciation for what my body can do, and I can't wait to get back out there. So got out on the trail, and things were going great. I felt good. I was a little, like, my back was a little sore, but whatever. And climbed Asgard Pass, got into the core zone, and we were taking a water break. And I noticed that my heart rate was elevated more than it typically is. And so I was like, huh. And I noticed it wasn't going down. And then I started to have this, like, literally impending doom feeling, like, you're going to die here. You're going to have a heart attack. It was just the weirdest. I have never experienced panic or anxiety before this moment. And I didn't really even know what was happening. And so I'm trying to, like, keep it cool. I'm like, all right, guys, let's, like, get up and, start hiking again. But they were, like, starting to notice that, like, I was kind of shutting down, like, I was getting really quiet. And I was like, okay, we're going to stop again up at this next spot. And because I wanted to check my pulse again. I wanted to, like, kind of evaluate myself. And we get there, and my heart rate's just not, like, going below 150, even at rest. And I'm like, what the heck? So then I'm spinning, I start to just spiral. And it was in that moment where I just felt, you have to let them know that you're not okay. And that was really hard for me to do. Like, again, because I'm used to doing that for other people. And so I looked up and I was like, you guys, I don't know what's happening, but I'm not okay. And they're like, you're immediately like, so you're like, okay, what can we do? Like, what's going on? And so long story short, they had to be the ones that were lifting me up. And, I would go a half mile, and they're like, okay, now we're going to eat part of a bagel. Okay, now we're going to go another half mile. And now we're going to get liquid in, and then we're going to make sure we go to the bathroom and, like, make sure all the things are working properly. And so it was the longest day in the mountains that ever experienced. And that wasn't the end of it. You think like, oh, you made it out and like you conquered getting through anxiety and, all the things. But that was just the start of me experiencing 3 years of anxiety, panic, impending doom, that I like thinking I was going to die. And I went through, like, I went to a cardiologist, like I wore a heart rate monitor. I was trying to like figure out all the things and it was a process of recognizing that, okay, the trauma of that accident, I didn't allow myself to truly to feel that and address that. And it took 3 years of checking myself into a hospital, telling them I think I'm having a heart attack, trying to process what was happening and having to find ways to regulate that. And there was a moment that started to shift things. And it was when I was traveling in another country. This was 2 years ago. Yeah, traveling in another country. And traveling became really difficult for me. I hated being away from my family. I always thought something was going to happen to them or something was going to happen to me. The mind is a wild, wild thing. It can literally paralyze you. And yeah, I was getting to the place of like, I don't even want to do anything. Like, it's just much easier just to stay here and stay tucked away and, not do anything scary. So I was traveling. I was in a foreign country. The person that I was staying in the hotel with, they had already gone to sleep. And at nighttime was when anxiety would start to present itself even more. And sure enough, my heart rate went up. I felt like I couldn't relax. I was getting like palpitations. And so I get up, I'm like, okay, breathe, Laura. Like, you're not going to check yourself into a Belizean hospital. Like that's not going to make anything better. And so I just felt like I needed to go out onto the balcony. And I just felt so strongly that the Lord was like, hey, have you tried coming to me and laying this at my feet? And so I went out on the balcony and I put on the song Jireh by Elevation Worship. And it just says, Jireh, you are enough for me. And it was this great realization that for so many years, I had placed stability in what I'm physically able to do, what I'm mentally able to do, and having both of those things at certain points completely stripped away, I was floundering and I needed to just simply let God be enough for me. And so, I mean, we've probably all experienced that like high level booger cry. That was me on the balcony at 2 a.m., just listening to this worship song, just high level booger crying and just like this incredible release. And it wasn't this like overnight, oh, anxiety is gone, you're never going to experience this again. But it was this recognizing nothing is wrong with you physically. Like this is the battle of the mind. And if you can place your trust back in me, Laura, realize that I am enough and I'm with you and I see you. That started the road to being able to see progressive healing. I went through the physical healing, but this emotional and healing was something that I never thought that I would have to face. And it was a battle going back into the enchantments after that moment that I experienced that day. I remember the next year, I started to feel those feelings the night before. And the next morning when we're all standing there at 2:30 in the morning to get ready to go to the trailhead, I just look at everybody and I said, hey, I need to let you guys know that it's taking everything in me to get on that trail today. And I'm experiencing fear and anxiety, and but I know that we can do this together. But if I can't, if I get to Kolchak, I might have to turn around, and that's okay. And so there was something so like beautiful in that too, of just letting them in to what was going on. And I was able to hike the whole day because I was able to be honest with where I was. And that's, I think, the most beautiful part we can share in our stories when we've experienced hard things or we're going through hard things. Sometimes the best thing we can do is just voice it and say, I'm not okay, but we're going to figure this out, and God's going to help me through it. But, and a lot of times people can relate, and they're just waiting for somebody else to say, I'm not okay. So then that gives them permission and an invitation to say, I'm not okay either.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for just walking us through that, and just the level of vulnerability that you shared in that story. I would love to ask you what, like, practically, you know, what that looked like, believing that God is enough after that evening, and like, you know, what like practically changed for you, because, you know, I think that it's a hard place to be, because something is, you said nothing was physically wrong with you, but in a sense, you know, like having panic attacks, or, you know, having that fear is something physically going on. And so it can be hard to not like want to run to a doctor or to a medical professional, or, you know, something like that when something is going on in your body. And so how do you balance that piece of it, you know, and like trusting God, but also like knowing that you might need doctors and medical professionals, right? And like, yeah, just I hope that makes sense.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. And, you know, leading up to that moment, I had gone to, you know, doctors, and I had worn a heart rate monitor, and everything pointed to, you know, things look okay. But you also hear those stories of like, doctors can tell you that you're okay, but there's actually something really going on that they're not catching. So all tests and signs pointed to I was physically okay. And I'm a firm believer, like, get the medical help, and they are there. They are God-given resources for us to be able to have when we're experiencing things like this. And so I had done that. And so after this kind of moment, I put in like just tangible practices when I start to feel that. It's like, okay, what was it in this moment that brought me peace? It was worship. It was worship music. And so I started putting that on when I would start to feel anxious. Like, okay, put on worship music, ground myself, which I would get on the ground. I would literally start to just stretch and breathe. And those two things were absolutely game changers for a tangible practice that I had to put in place for myself, of like, do these things, and the symptoms would start to decrease in that. And if they wouldn't, I was fully going to go check myself into a hospital.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's helpful. I was just curious, you know, like what tangibly.
Oh, and phoning a friend. There are times where I would just phone a friend too. It's like, yeah, God is enough, but he also places people in your life that are just true lifelines. And so there'd be times where I would just call, you know, a good friend of mine and be like, hi, I'm losing my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to what you said. Like, sometimes the best thing that you can do is to share.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, I've heard there's so much power in, like, especially in that situation with like fear and anxiety is actually speaking out loud what you're feeling. So then you can hear it back to yourself to know like, okay, this isn't like an actual thing that is, most likely going to happen.
Right.
And that can sometimes be helpful to like hear it, back to yourself instead of just circulating in your head. Right.
Totally. Yeah.
So for somebody who, is maybe going through a similar experience, they had a life-altering injury, but they didn't, maybe handle the mental things that come along with that. What piece of advice or word of encouragement would you give to that person? Maybe even if they're not at the point that you were at yet.
I would share it with somebody, find a safe place, a safe person, that you can just share what's going on, and not even expecting them to offer you any sort of advice or anything, but just being able to get out of your own head and share, and also just get in the word. If you're not typically a person who reads the Bible, just start picking it up and just reading and saying, okay, God, what do you have for me today? I would say that I would just extend that. Start simple, like try not to fix yourself, if that makes sense. I think initially I was trying to fix myself because I'm like, I don't got time for this. I need to fix this right now. And now looking back, I had to go through all of it. I think we pray for God to take us out of really hard things, when in reality, the kindest thing He can do for us is allow us to go through that season. And He's there every step of the way. And God doesn't cause these bad things to happen, but sometimes the removal out of really hard things prematurely, we can't get the fullness of it. So I would say don't be afraid to sit in it and tell somebody about it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Laura, for that advice, and just again for sharing what you have with us today.
Yeah.
I would love for you to leave the listeners with a way that they can find more about you or more about Atlas Free and all of that stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. So you can follow Atlas Free on social media. It's just at Atlas Free. And atlasfree.org is the website. You can learn more about what we're doing in the fight against sex trafficking. There's also a Instagram page that's dedicated to all those who are getting outdoors for the freedom of others. It's called Get Outdoors for Freedom. So you can go and follow that. And if you want to, see what I'm up to, I'm Laura _freedom_fighter. A little bit harder than the other ones. But would love to just invite anyone who wants to take that next step in fighting for the freedom of the exploited. You can get outdoors, and we have a few spots that are open on some of the hikes, and you can go to atlasfree.org /fundraisers, and you'll see a list of different ones. I'm doing the enchantments this summer, and there's one more spot left. Who's the lucky person that's going to come with me? And then I'm doing the Tetons as well, and there's 3 spots left on that hike. So it's fun. The community is fun. Or you can do your own adventure. You doing something this summer? I have this wild hair idea that I want to paddleboard to Stehekin from what's that place called? Chelan. So from Chelan to Stehekin, apparently people do that, and it's like miles. So if you're doing something wild like that, like paddleboarding to Stehekin, you can turn that into a fundraiser.
I love it. Well, y'all go check it out. And again, Laura, just thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of My Valley, His Victory. If you or someone you know are interested in being on this podcast, please email myvalleyhisvictory@gmail.com.